Many gardeners stack materials into raised beds without thinking much about balance, only to end up with beds that sink too fast, dry out too quickly, or just fail to support strong root growth. The truth is, a raised bed is like a living compost system combined with a root zone. Every layer, whether cardboard, branches, compost or soil, has a purpose, and the right ratio really determines how productive the bed will be for years. Get this wrong and plants struggle, but get it right and you'll have a bed that produces healthy crops with minimal upkeep. Starting with cardboard as the foundation. Cardboard at the very bottom of a raised bed does more than suppress weeds. It slowly breaks down into soft organic matter, attracting worms and feeding soil fungi. The layer should be thick enough to block grasses and weeds, but not so thick that it suffocates drainage. A layer of 2 to 3 flattened boxes, roughly half an inch thick, works best. Wetting it thoroughly before adding anything else helps kickstart decomposition and creates a barrier that roots will eventually penetrate once it breaks down. Branches provide the long-term framework. Above the cardboard, coarse materials like branches, sticks, and even pruned hedge cuttings form the backbone of what's known as the Hügelkultur method. These woody materials decompose very slowly, acting as a sponge to store water and gradually releasing nutrients over years. The ideal ratio is about 20 to 25% of the bed's total depth. For a 24-inch deep bed, that means a branch layer of about 5 to 6 inches. Lay them crisscrossed to leave air gaps, which improve drainage and prevent compaction. Smaller twigs and brush can be tucked in between larger branches to reduce settling. Compost fuels the biological engine. The compost layer is where microbial activity really comes alive. This is the material that fuels plant growth in the short term, while the wood breaks down more slowly underneath. For most raised beds, compost should make up about 30 to 40% of the fill. If the bed is 24 inches deep, this comes to 7 to 9 inches of compost. Use a mix of mature compost and half-finished material if possible. The finished compost feeds immediately, while the half-finished material continues to break down and energize microbes. Gardeners who have access to manure-based composts should balance them with carbon-rich additions like shredded leaves or straw to prevent nitrogen overload. So, soil ties the system together. It's really the anchor that stabilizes the whole mix. Without soil, roots often, fail to establish properly because compost alone can shift, shrink or just dry out unevenly. Soil should make up at least 35 to 40% of the top layers of the bed. For a 24-inch bed, you'll want to aim for 8 to 10 inches of quality topsoil, or maybe a blend of topsoil and sand for a bit better structure. Mixing some of the soil down into the compost layer helps integrate the two, making sure microbes, fungi and earthworms can move freely through both layers. This also prevents that distinct barrier effect that happens when pure compost sits directly beneath soil. All right, let's look at a practical step-by-step example. We'll walk through a 24-inch raised bed to make this ratio simple. Start with half an inch of wet cardboard flattened across the bottom. Next, add a 5 to 6 inch layer of branches, ranging from thumb-sized sticks to wrist-thick logs. On top of that, spread 7 to 9 inches of compost, and you can mix in some shredded leaves if your compost is very fresh. Finally, add 8 to 10 inches of soil, lightly blending the bottom inch with the compost layer below it. And don't forget to water thoroughly after building, just to help everything settle in nicely. Over time, you'll notice the bed will sink as all those materials break down. So you can expect a drop of about 3 to 5 inches in the first season, which means it's a good idea to overfill the bed just a bit at the start to account for all that settling. Each season after that, just top up with 1 to 2 inches of fresh compost to keep fertility and depth right where you want them. So why does this ratio create such lasting fertility? Well, this layered balance actually works because each component plays its own role, both in short-term fertility and long-term soil health. Cardboard, for instance, suppresses weeds and feeds fungi. Branches help with water storage and provide a slow release of nutrients. Compost gives you that immediate fertility and a boost of microbial life. And soil, of course, anchors the whole structure, making sure you've got strong root growth and a nice, stable texture. Altogether, these layers mimic natural forest floors, where organic matter slowly breaks down over time, supporting thriving plant life above. By following these ratios, gardeners end up with a raised bed that doesn't just grow crops in the first year, but actually continues to improve over the next decade. The microbial life that thrives in this balance transforms all those raw materials into humus, turning even heavy clay or sandy soils into rich, productive growing environments. If this guide helped you understand the right way to balance cardboard branches, compost and soil in your raised beds, do share it with other gardeners who are building their own systems. And, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor for more proven, practical methods that turn every bed and garden into a living soil factory.